got to a point of having trained loads and loads of people in Lean IT Foundation, Kaizen, leadership, and I tell lots of stories. As most of you know, I like to talk a lot. So I tell stories about transformations I've seen, things I've seen at organizations, and I noticed that people react quite nicely to those. And I thought, well, okay, let's say I write those down in a book, and then I don't need to tell them again and again and again. People can just read it. So that was really one of the main drivers for me to actually write this book. The other thing was that I couldn't quite work out what the logical order of things was. When you do Lean, what do you do? What do you do first, and then what do you do, and then what do you do after that? So I thought, well, let's try and work out what the logical order is. And so that was another reason why I ended up sitting behind my computer. And it was really all about bringing everything together so that there's this one publication. If you read this, you're okay. Okay, so you don't have to go and pick up all things everywhere else. You just read this and you're okay. When you actually read this thing, it's been written hopefully in a way where you kind of recognize things. You go, okay, I know that. Oh, okay, I recognize that. I understand that bit. And then you get to a point that you go, what's he talking about? And then you know that's how far I am in my transformation. So it's quite a logical thing. And then you pick up that and you read those pages a little bit more attentively, and then you know what to do. So that's really the idea. So it's meant to help you to know where you are as an organization. Now, as you've seen, it's quite thick, and I don't expect everybody to read it. It's made up of 5 parts, so I'm going to tell you about it. I'm not going to read anything from it, but I'll tell you about it so that you know, so that you can talk knowledgeably to other people about it and say, well, it's a really cool book, and the insights are this and this and this, and they'll go away and buy it, and that'll be okay. So I'll just take you through the 5 parts. Okay, so part 1 is really about the why. Why do we need to do Lean? Why is this so important? And by the way, when we talk Lean, just think Agile and DevOps and all those things as well. It's all basically the same thing. Don't tell everybody, but it's the same kind of thing. So it's all about getting your organization to work according to Lean principles. And that's what I try and describe and try and get people to understand how that works. In the past, it's been vital for car companies, logistics companies, airplane companies. It's moved into banks. And since probably about 2010, since we've had mobile phones, all of us, and especially these smartphones, you see that information-rich organizations have to work with Lean, because the IT organizations need to work with Lean as well. So it's affecting everybody. So in fact, it's turned into this large societal transformation that we're all being affected by. This one's focused on the IT organizations, and there's really 2 aspects to IT. We see that there's some technical advantages that you can have by having cool technical stuff and being advanced in that area. But the real key competitive advantage that you have as an IT organization is a behavioral one. And that's what this book is about. It's about what behaviors are necessary to give you that competitive advantage as an IT organization. So there you go, there's an insight. That's the one that you can just kind of throw out there. Yeah. Getting the behaviors right, that's Lean. So having understood why we need to do Lean, that's important. And then while I was writing, in fact, this was a part that kind of edged its way into the book, because I started writing about transformations, and then I realized that a lot of organizations are doing stuff, but they're not actually transforming. And what do I mean by that? I've called it starting out, which is what a lot of organizations do. And there are a couple of ways that organizations like to start out. It's, let's do some visual management. So we're going to hang some stuff on the wall, and we're going to have some stand-up meetings, and we're going to talk about stuff on the wall. Cool, fun. But are you really transforming at that moment? Not really. The other thing you could do is start solving problems. Use Kaizen and really start solving problems. But again, if you solve a bunch of problems, have you started your transformation? Not really. Another one is do some training. Well, training's important, but have you started your transformation? Not really. And by going through this stuff, I found out that the key insight is that you need three things before you can actually say you're doing a transformation. The first is that we need leadership to commit. They need to commit to their own self-development. And they can show that by actually learning stuff, by actually making sure they have books available to them, by ensuring that they talk about lean together, that they have management meetings that discuss the lean management system. Okay, and you see that this doesn't happen in a lot of organizations, not initially. But when that starts to happen, you know, okay, you're on the right track. The second one is that you need a change story as a leadership team, and the third is you need a plan. If you're missing any of those three things, you know this organization is not ready to transform yet. Okay? Insight number 2. Okay, then we come really to the meat of the book, which is parts 3 and 4. Part 3 is about the leadership transformation, and part 4 is about the team transformation. So let's just look at the leadership transformation. It has an interesting dynamic because with teams, just looking forward to teams, we do that in a fairly compact time. So we're trying to help a team to get to a new level of performance in a short period of time. With leadership, it's different. It's about getting a continuous flow of learning, continually making sure that these leaders start really understanding what behaviors are necessary and practicing them and coming back and reflecting on them. That's a really, really important aspect of the transformation. And the key issue here is obviously they don't take time and they don't take they don't have the attention to practice enough. And these are things that we really need to get leaders to take that time, clear out their agendas, and actually really look at how they can help their organizations to work further. Key insight here. One of the problems that leaders have is they don't understand the concept of flow. Now, flow is about ensuring that work gets done in a short period of time without a lot of waiting time in between. Okay, without a lot of waste in between. And what you see is that leaders just don't understand this concept enough, and they don't challenge their organizations enough to improve that. Which means that the teams are left kind of up in the air thinking, well, yeah, I want to get things better, but I can only improve things in my team and not across the whole organization. And here we have the concept of value streams that is very important, and you see that that's being used a lot more these days, that leaders are slowly starting to understand that this is a key concept in their organizations. So that's really one of the important things that leaders need to focus on is not just their behaviors and making sure they're going out and seeing stuff, but really understanding what they're seeing and acting on what they're looking at. Then we have the team transformation bit, which is part 4. And in there, I've tried to describe just a whole pile of tools that you can use to understand, to help a team understand its own situation. And how can you then help them to take steps in improving their ability to perform for their customers. So we see a very simple setup. It's basically 4 weeks of very intense analysis and then about 8 weeks of helping them to work through that analysis and turn that into behaviors that are effective. And obviously giving better performance. Now in this part of the book, I've tried to describe what a Lean IT coach does. And it's something that's, it's a way of working that is quite it's almost schizophrenic, because on the one hand you need to be in there helping the teams to do the work, and on the other hand you need to step back and help them reflect. And it's slightly difficult. It's not as easy as a role as it seems. And this is something that I have a lot of respect for my colleagues who are out there doing this, knowing when do you go in there, when do you do the work for the team and actually pull the team forwards, and when do you step back and let them do the work themselves. It's quite a difficult thing to understand. So we've gone through this period, maybe 6-9 months of talking with leadership on a weekly basis, looking at their development. We've gone through a series of waves of teams being transformed. And then we get to this really vague period, this really weird period, which is kind of called continuous improvement. And that's when we're not really pushing anything into the team, but we're hoping that the team is starting to learn, and the leadership teams are starting to learn how to improve autonomously. And that's a really interesting period, because what we're trying to do is make sure that they every day solve problems that they're facing. But you need an interaction between the leadership and the team to make sure that happens. And that interaction is one that's really quite intense to get sorted out, because leaders understand the leadership stuff, but they stay at distance. They stay at a distance from the teams, especially the higher leadership. And that's where we need to really get them in there, looking at the behaviors they need to make them successful. That's what Lean IT is really about. See, one of the things that makes Lean maybe more difficult than other methods is that it doesn't prescribe anything. It doesn't say, you have to do this, you have to do that. You need a product owner, you need a scrum master, you have to have a sprint of 2 weeks. These kind of rules, they don't exist. Lean is there to say, well, look, these are the ways, this is the way to look at the world, these are the principles that you apply to the world. You have problems, solve them. Yeah? Got a problem? Solve it. So these are really the key insights from the 5 parts. So now you can just go with, yeah, I know, chill. Yeah, I understand this stuff. One of the questions I had, because let's face it, the Lean IT Expert, it's not a very sexy title, is it? I'm sure I could have thought up something that was much better. But for me, the Lean IT Expert is actually a very important title. Why is it important? Because it's about acquiring knowledge. It's about moving yourself to a state in which you have a set of knowledge that you can apply. And I was fortunate enough to be involved with the Lean IT Association for many years, and I wrote a number of publications for them. And there are basically four areas that we look at. One is your basic understanding of Lean. We have the Lean IT Kaizen, which is about solving problems, Lean IT Leadership, and Lean IT Coach. And a Lean IT Expert is somebody who knows all that stuff, basically the stuff that's in the book. But you kind of think, well, yeah, it's 300 and something pages. Whoa, that's a lot. That's difficult. I can never do that. And I've just read 3 pages and I can't remember what I wrote or read. So, but how does it work in practice? In practice, it's really cool, because you see people learning bits. So there's somebody who's learning a bit on Kaizen here. There's some leaders out here learning stuff on leadership. And as they act, and as they do, and as they talk about the things that they do, people absorb the information. And the funny thing is, you can create a Lean IT Expert without them ever having done a course, without them ever having read the book. It's about observing, it's about people around you showing behaviors and doing things in a particular way, and you going along in that process. Now, obviously, it's more fun to learn it yourself, It's more fun to read the book, obviously. But it's not as difficult as it seems. Okay? It's more about just getting out there and doing stuff. Bit by bit, finding out, okay, what can I do with visual management? How can I go about solving a problem? What are the different ways I can do that? What are the different ways I can get people to gain insight in their own performances? And really, that's what I've tried to convey in this book. And you know, obviously, I certainly do hope you read it, because, you know, boy, it really helps to understand.